our Newsmax deputy health editor, Nick Tate, who is the co-author of Da Vinci's Baby Boomer Survival Guide. And before we get to Mike, Nick, let me get to you. What is the big reason that we're having trouble getting the Veterans Administration in gear to get the medical help to our vets?
Well, good morning, J.D. and Miranda. You know, there's a variety of reasons that are keeping veterans from getting the care. One of them is there's been great success in battlefield medicine in terms of treating veterans in the field. A generation ago, many military personnel would have died from brain injuries and spinal cord injuries, but they're being saved and getting back to the States for care. And once they get to the VA, there are not enough doctors to treat them. So while those long lists for waits have shortened from last year, they are still very long, and veterans are waiting many months in some cases to get care. That's where a group like Operation Backbone can kind of step in and fill that gap, and I believe that's what they're trying to do.
Mike, what do you think needs to be done?
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, just a quick brief. Operation Backbone is a nonprofit I started a couple of years ago, and our primary focus is brain and spine. And we treat active duty soldiers, families, and veterans around the world that have sustained the most critical injuries. So then post-rehab is with the National Hockey League, the Buffalo Sabres, and there's some other teams that we're working on. To answer your question, what really needs to be done is you have to have, what we have found out, you have to have the diagnosis has to be done correctly the first time. And that seems to be one of the biggest issues. So the great example is if someone is diagnosed within the VA or anywhere and they're diagnosed with asthma, then that entire route that the VA is going to take will be for asthma. What happens is when we get a hold of them and they find out that they really do have a lot of chest injuries and wounds, that they have cracked backs and crushed discs and spinal issues. So the number one thing that has to be done, you've got to have the diagnosis done correctly the first time, and that's exactly what Operation Backbone does.
Mike Sformo, we're going to ask you to stay with us as you're joining us via Skype from Massachusetts. We'll ask Newsmax Deputy Health Editor Nick Tate to stay with us too, because we're moving in the direction of trying to get some outside resources in to help our military veterans. And Mike obviously has this organization trying to make it work. So when we come back, we'll talk more about Operation Backbone, the right diagnosis, both in individual cases and government-wide. Stay tuned. With Miranda Kahn, J.D. Hayworth back with you on America's Forum, and also with us via Skype from Massachusetts, Mike Sformo, the Executive Director of Operation Backbone, and from the Newsmax TV newsroom, our good friend Newsmax Deputy Health Editor Nick Tate. So, Mike, I have to ask you, you were offering a for instance about the people you tried to help, and you said a guy's diagnosed with asthma, but he's got severe back problems. Has one of the problems been that the VA searches for the most inexpensive fix to our nation's veterans, medically speaking?
Well, I don't know if that's the correct answer, but what I will tell you from my personal experience is that the people at the VA have their arms tied in many, many ways. They have them tied with the bureaucracy and the red tape. And if you don't have the expertise, you only can offer, unfortunately, what you can only offer. And a lot of it then is pushed on narcotics. And it's just it's a quick spiral down when you can't diagnose it properly, and the only thing that you can offer as a caregiver or a doctor or a nurse is a ton of narcotics that seems to mask the pain. Once the pain is masked, you come back and they say, how do you feel? I feel a lot better. So it must be working, so we're not going to continue working on you or the progress. And then later on in life, you become a little bit older, things crack and break, and then all of a sudden now you got a real problem, and then the VA says, well, you should have came back to us a couple of years ago before you got to this point. So it's a very vicious spiral. But the narcotics is a horrible, horrible, horrible thing to go through, and we work with them all the time on that, yeah.
You know, Mike, painkillers are really not a solution, as you say. It's a Band-Aid. It's to deal with the current crisis. My question to you, I know that there are great strides that are being made in brain injury and spinal cord injury rehabilitation with new techniques. It seems to me that some of the mission of your group is to try to bring that new medicine to veterans so they can actually raise the standard and the quality of care that they're getting. It's not just getting them in front of a doctor, but making sure they get the right kind of care. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. The way I designed Operation Backbone is actually it's a fascinating concept. So basically the way it works is if you get hurt and you are able to be put into our pipeline in Operation Backbone, all your images, all your medical stuff is sent throughout my network. And it only goes to the top brain surgeons and spine surgeons and our radiologists around the world. So the people that are actually looking at it are the actual brain and spine doctors and the radiologists. And it's amazing because I have a few cases we're working on, and it's been years and years and years for these guys to try and get help. We get a hold of their information, and sometimes with 6 or 7 hours later, I've got 16 different types of diagnosis back from brain and spine people from around the world that says,
wow,
we can do this and we can do that. So
that is so encouraging, Mike. I know a lot of veterans want to know your website. How do people get in touch with you?
It's operationbackbone.com, operationbackbone.com. And I'll tell you one other thing too, JD, fascinating is when we're done, we've partnered with the Buffalo Sabres, the National Hockey League, and other teams. So when we're done, what we do is we take these guys and we actually pair them up in the arena with actual NHL players. And the motivation and the spouses and the wives is just absolutely overwhelming. And it's a tremendous, tremendous asset to have.
Mike Sformo, we thank you for Skyping in from Massachusetts with Operation Backbone, and of course our own Nick Tate, Newsmax Deputy Health Editor. We thank you as well. Now, Mike mentioned his website. There's something else we want to mention to you. It's the book that our good friend Nick Tate has worked on, How You Can Survive the Baby Boomer Financial Crisis. You can get Da Vinci's Baby Boomer Survival Guide by going to the website babyboomers711.com.